The message wasn't sent through a diplomat. It wasn't buried in a press release or softened by a spokesperson. It came directly, publicly, in language so specific that the room went quiet the moment people understood what they were hearing. Donald Trump looked straight into the camera and told the world what would happen to Iran's civilian population if one more American was touched. And what he said wasn't a warning. It was a timeline. This isn't a political debate about tone or foreign policy posture. This is about a sitting former president who may return to power promising in writing, on the record, that ordinary Iranian people would pay for the decisions of their government. Not soldiers, not officials, civilians. And when you understand the full context of why he said it, when you see what was happening in the hours before that statement was posted, you'll realize this moment is more dangerous than any headline is telling you, because here's what nobody is connecting. The threat didn't come out of nowhere. It came after a specific chain of events, a specific conversation, and a specific briefing that changed the calculation. And the Iranians read it. Their state media read it. Their military strategist read it. And what happened in the following 48 hours tells you everything about whether that threat worked or whether it made the situation worse. Let's go back to where this actually started. American intelligence had been tracking a specific network operating out of Tehran for months. Not a military facility, not a government building. A network. A web of financial operations, communication channels, and human assets that had been quietly funding proxy attacks on American personnel across the Middle East. The attacks weren't headline-grabbing. They were methodical, small, calibrated to stay below the threshold that would trigger a formal military response. But they were killing Americans. And someone in Washington decided the patience had run out. Trump was briefed, and Trump responded the way Trump responds. The post went up at 11:43 p.m. It named Iran by name. It used the phrase "rain of fire." It specified that retaliation would not be limited to military targets. And it gave what read like a countdown, a window of time for Iran to pull back before consequences began. Legal analysts spent the next morning arguing about whether a social media post could constitute an act of war. Foreign policy experts argued about whether the post was strategy or performance. None of that matters as much as what happened in Tehran that night. Iranian state television ran the post in full, not as a news item, as a provocation. Within hours, hardline factions inside the Iranian government were publicly demanding an immediate response. Within 24 hours, 3 separate proxy attack cells that had been quiet for weeks suddenly went active. 2 American bases received rocket fire. 1 American contractor was killed. This is the trap that everyone watching from outside never sees coming. When a threat is issued publicly, when it is designed to be broadcast, to be watched by the world, it doesn't just pressure the target, it pressures the target's internal politics. Iranian hardliners didn't just hear a threat to their country, they heard an opportunity, a chance to prove to their own population that they would not be intimidated, that the Islamic Republic bows to no one. The threat that was meant to stop the attacks accelerated them. Now here is where it gets complicated. There is a school of thought inside certain defense circles, not fringe but present and influential, that believes the only way to stop Iranian proxy activity is to force a direct confrontation. That as long as Iran can hide behind plausible deniability, the attacks will never stop. That a threat loud enough, specific enough, might break that cycle. The problem is that it requires the threat to be believed. And the question every intelligence analyst is quietly trying to answer right now is whether Iran believes this one, whether they calculate that the political will actually exists to follow through, whether the words on the screen translate into action or evaporate the way threats in American politics so often do when the cameras move on. That calculation is happening right now in Tehran. And the answer to it is going to shape what the next 6 months look like across the entire region. There are families in Iran, not government officials, not soldiers, who woke up and read that their lives were being placed on a geopolitical table, used as leverage. The human cost of that is not something that shows up in foreign policy analysis, but it is real, and this story is not over. We turn now to the White House, because Easter Sunday this year was not what the photo opportunity was designed to look like. On the surface, the images were familiar. The South Lawn, the children, the eggs, the president waving from the colonnade, everything exactly where it was supposed to be. And then, in the middle of a live broadcast, something happened that no one in the communications office had planned for. A reporter asked a question that wasn't on the list. The question was about Ukraine, about the negotiations that had just collapsed for the 3rd time in 4 months, about a leaked memo suggesting that the American position in those negotiations had quietly shifted in Russia's favor. A document the White House had spent 2 days denying existed. The president paused, the press secretary moved to deflect, and then the president spoke anyway. What he said took approximately 23 seconds. In those 23 seconds, he confirmed 3 things the White House had been actively denying: that the memo existed, that he had read it, and that he broadly agreed with its conclusions. The press pool went electric. The Easter egg roll continued behind him. Children chased painted eggs across the lawn while, in the colonnade, the diplomatic world was processing the fact that a document officially denied 3 times in 48 hours had just been confirmed by the person who had to have authorized the denial. Ukraine's foreign ministry put out a statement within the hour. Poland called an emergency diplomatic consultation. 2 senators from the president's own party called for an immediate classified briefing. By evening, what had been a carefully staged celebration had become a full diplomatic incident, playing out against the backdrop of pastel decorations and the sound of children laughing. The White House communications team spent the rest of the day trying to walk back what couldn't be walked back. When the principal speaks, the statement stands. Every clarification only drew more attention to the original admission. Here is what this moment actually reveals. There is a fundamental tension at the heart of the current administration between what gets communicated publicly and what gets decided privately. That tension is not new in American politics. But this particular administration has elevated it to a dysfunction. Decisions get made, denials get issued, and then in an unguarded moment at an Easter egg roll, the decision leaks through the denial like water through tissue paper. The question is whether this is incompetence or strategy. Whether someone calculated that a holiday setting would soften the blow of an admission that had to come eventually. Whether the children in the eggs were set dressing designed to make a diplomatic shift feel less like a shift. The Ukrainians don't think it was an accident. The Poles don't think it was an accident. And at least 2 intelligence services who closely monitor American diplomatic signaling don't think it was an accident either. What they all agree on is that it changes the situation, and that the next round of negotiations will look nothing like the previous 3. Now we go somewhere that has nothing to do with politics, somewhere that is, in the most literal possible sense, on the other side of the world. Further, the far side of the moon has never received a radio signal from Earth directly. For the entire history of human civilization, from the first radio transmission to the most advanced satellite network ever built, one face of the moon has always faced us, and one face has always faced away. The far side sits in permanent communication darkness, shielded by 3,474 kilometers of lunar rock from every frequency we've ever broadcast. That changed this week. A relay satellite positioned at a stable gravitational point beyond the moon's limb successfully bounced a communication signal to a lander operating on the far side surface for the first time in sustained operational conditions. Not a test, not a demonstration. An actual data relay carrying telemetry, positioning data, and surface imagery from a place that has never, in the entire history of human space exploration, been in contact with home. Here's why it matters, beyond the engineering achievement. The far side of the moon is different from the near side in ways that are scientifically profound. Its crust is thicker, its surface features are older. Its craters are deeper and more numerous because the near-side crust absorbed and redistributed some of the ancient impact energy that the far side preserved in frozen record. What's buried under the far side regolith is a more complete archive of the early solar system than anything accessible from Earth. And there's something else. The far side is radio quiet, permanently shielded from Earth's electromagnetic noise. It represents the only location in the inner solar system where radio telescopes could operate without interference from human civilization. The faint echoes of hydrogen distribution across the early universe, signals that would be completely drowned out by terrestrial radio traffic, could potentially be detected from the far side in conditions that exist nowhere else accessible to human instruments. The relay satellite doesn't just enable communication, it opens a location. There is a geopolitical dimension to this that most coverage is glossing over. Multiple space agencies and multiple private entities are now in an active race to place assets on the lunar surface. The far side, precisely because of its scientific value and its radio quiet properties, is among the most contested destinations. Who places infrastructure there first, who controls the relay nodes, who owns the landing pads, will have significant influence over what kind of science gets done there and what kind of surveillance doesn't. It is not an exaggeration to say that the relay link established this week is as strategically significant as the first undersea cables that connected continents by telegraph. The technology changes what's possible. What's possible changes what's contested. What's contested changes what gets built. And what gets built on the far side of the moon in permanent silence, 384,000 kilometers from the nearest human dispute, will be shaped entirely by decisions being made right now in rooms by people whose names you mostly don't know yet. 3 stories. 1 threat that may have made the situation it was designed to prevent more likely. 1 holiday moment that unraveled months of diplomatic positioning in 23 seconds. And 1 quiet engineering achievement on the other side of the moon that almost no one is watching closely enough. They are not unrelated. They are all about the same thing. About who has the power to shape what happens next. About the gap between what is said publicly and what is decided privately. About the places, physical and political, that most people never see until something there changes everything. Stay close, because all 3 of these are moving faster than the headlines suggest.